Did it do it?
All right. So we should be live on the air. Just waiting for it to pop up on our monitor. Hey, looky there. Very good. All right. So now I'm going to try not to watch that, my monitor screen, so I don't see myself on a 4-second delay or however long it is. Welcome, everybody. We're glad that you're here with us. We got a few folks that are coming in. If you'll look that way on that side of the screen, we've got a Facebook chat, kind of a commenting chat feature. It will not show up on your Facebook feed. This just appears here, but it will give us a chance to do some question and answer and that kind of thing. I don't have any other way for you to contact us if you're not bold enough to jump onto that one. So just got to throw it in.
You can just message me through the public Facebook page, and I've got my phone.
Go to facebook.com/lovehopeadventure, and you can send us a direct message through there. It is December 20th, 8 p.m. Eastern time. If you're watching this some other time, then we're glad that you're watching, but anything that we say about being live or, chatting with us and things like that won't apply to you. Okay. So this will be up as a replay. If you can only catch part of this, or you want a friend to check it out, go to the same link. This page will still be here, just with a replay version of the video. So again, welcome. We're glad that you're here. This is our first opportunity after months and months of talking about it. We finally got the technology figured out that we're going to be able to do a live broadcast interview with our good friend Jay Dee. Everybody say hey to Jay Dee, or Jay Dee, say hey.
Hello.
All right. Now you're going to notice a strange thing about his screen versus ours. He doesn't have a face. He is one of our anonymous blogging friends, and that gives him a little bit of freedom. Let me not jump the gun on that one, though, because we may come back to that. So we're here to talk about, what is our topic, our main topic?
Our main topic is how to talk to your spouse about sex. And I think that's a really difficult thing. So we're going to address these questions, and we brought Jay on to talk about it because he has talked a lot about this on his blog. So why don't you tell us some about your blog, Jay, because some of our viewers don't know about Uncovering Intimacy.
Sure. I started my blog about, I think it'll be 6 years this January ago. And I started actually with the blog name Sex Within Marriage because we were going through a whole bunch of stuff in our marriage and finally turning things around. And I was very excited about all the changes and thought, I'm sure other people are having the same problems. So I kind of just wanted to share it with everybody, but that's kind of hard to do in Christian churches and everything. Everyone kind of shuts down when you start talking about sex. So I decided instead to start blogging. I started blogging anonymously, which is why there's no video of me, because it gives me the freedom, to talk about things that I probably wouldn't be comfortable talking about, or people I know aren't comfortable with me talking about. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, I try to answer all the questions that basically everyone else does not want to answer, or does not feel comfortable answering, or doesn't want their answers tied to their names. So I will tackle all the embarrassing and awkward questions that no one else wants to touch with a 10-foot pole, and do surveys on them and ask people questions and give my ideas, and sometimes even try them out and say, hey, this is what worked for us and what did not work for us, and you can try this and that. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've loved about getting to know Jay Dee over, I guess what's it been, like 4 years, something like that. We've sort of known each other from a distance. I had never even heard the guy's voice until about a year ago. That's not true. I heard you on your podcast, your Once Upon a Time podcast that I hear maybe making a comeback.
It's coming back. I promise.
It's coming back. It's official.
Awesome. Oh, yeah.
Exciting.
And then I finally actually, in testing for this, because we were not on the air, I actually got to see him. I was like, whoa, there's a Jay Dee. So
he actually exists, y'all.
Yeah, he's like a for real person. But that anonymity does give him, as he said, it gives him the freedom to discuss some stuff. And I almost interjected earlier and said, boy, howdy does he. Because he has had some very interesting reader questions and some very interesting topics that he's been able to tackle. No, I'm not even I was going to say.
I'm just going to put it out there. It has nothing to do with anonymity. I couldn't answer half of what he answers. It does not even matter that.
I just mean some of the.
Can't even answer
he tackles a lot of topics that some folks, myself included, might be a little skittish to cover. But he, if you've never been to his website, you should go by and look for some of his surveys. He does really amazing surveys. And then, we did a reader survey one time that was sort of like to help us get to know our audience. And then we looked at it and it was like, that's cool. That's helpful. He looks at it and like breaks it down like a statistician. And he's like, 73.9% of men said that this thing happens, but of those, 24%. And it's amazing the insights that come out of that. So again, uncoveringintimacy.com is where you're going to find him blogging about all kinds of great stuff. But to the topic at hand, we're going to talk about talking, right? So Keelie kicks off with our first question.
All right. For Jay Dee. So what do you think keeps a couple from talking about sex? I mean, was this something you were struggling with in your own marriage? Is this a reader survey maybe you've done? Give us some insights.
Yeah. Let me see where to start. I think there are a lot of reasons that they have trouble talking about sex. I think it depends on the couple as well. Some of the more common ones are just that Christians don't grow up talking about sex. We're all kind of grow up being taught that, yes, it's important for your marriage, but don't talk about it. And don't talk about the fact that you do it, but make sure you're doing it. And we grow up with this idea that sex is somehow wrong because we're not talking about it. And we just assume that everybody knows what to do and what the right things are because, well, no one's talking about it. Therefore, everyone else must know what's going on. And maybe I'm the only one who doesn't. And then if I talk about it, then I'm going to look stupid. Because clearly other people would be asking questions if they didn't know what was going on. And since no one is, they must all be experts. And I don't want to be the odd one out. I think that's one of the reasons people don't talk. The other one is just, it's a very, very personal, intimate thing. And a lot of people will say that talking about sex is more intimate than having sex. Like there's more vulnerability needed. And it's kind of strange that you're like, yes, we can do all these things naked, but let's never talk about it because that would be awkward.
Which we find to be, by the way, the most effective way.
Yes, just do it and don't talk about it.
No, I mean naked.
Oh, do it naked. Oh, I'm like, what are we talking about?
No, I've never thought about that. That is a very good point. And honestly, this was something that Keelie and I, I'm sorry. This is something that I had a difficult time with when she first started blogging about this very intimate topic. Was I was kind of like, so we're just going to say that on the internet. And by the way, we had never been anonymous for a long time. I was not on the blog, and certainly wasn't like on videos and things like that. But it took me a little while to be okay with it. And then I finally, Jay Dee, I think I really had to force myself to say, this needs to be talked about. So I kind of had to tell myself to get over myself and say, this is not being talked about. It should be talked about. Nobody else is talking about it. And like you said, just because it's silence doesn't mean that it's because everybody knows what's going on. It's probably because nobody knows what's going on and nobody wants to be the first one to say that.
Yeah.
So we kind of jumped in.
And it's hard. Like I remember like my first blog post, I was like, yep, I wrote all this thing. And I'm like, your finger just kind of hovers over the publish button. You're like, do I really want to send this thing? Because even though no one knows it's me, it'll be out there.
There is no turning back once you hit that button. It is out there forever.
Yeah. And at first it was easy because for the first few months, I had only like 100 people ever visit my site.
Right.
Like it was like, I think it was like 1,000 people in the first 6 months or something like that. So it was nothing. And now I get 2,000 to 3,000 a day. And still every once in a while, I'm like, there's going to be a lot of people reading this thing. And then the first time you like talk in a podcast or you get interviewed on somebody else's podcast, you're like, well, this is going to be my voice on this talking. And I've written these words.
You crack me down there. The comment knows.
Oh my goodness. I've talked so much about orgasms on podcasts. Like, this is what people bring me on their podcast to talk about.
There was a period of about 6 or 8 months where she went from, I was like, we need to dump IamTheSexTalkLady.com and get IamTheOrgasmLady.com.
That's right.
Because that was all she was talking about on all these different podcasts and guest blogging and stuff.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but for me, the first time, like, I was like, yeah, I've written about all these things, but actually saying the words out loud is even harder. And you stumble over that for a little bit, and you kind of get used to it.
When you were first starting your podcast, had you yet, I know you hadn't written the introduction to, was it Introduction to Talking Dirty Talk? What's the book title?
Introduction to Talking Dirty. Yeah, no, I hadn't written that yet.
You hadn't written it, but like, had that process already been going through your mind, or?
No, I tend to be that once I have an idea, I just jump and do it. It doesn't really take me a long time to go from conception to, hey, let's get this thing out there.
Right. So yeah, so I mean, you're, like you said, you're starting to talk to people, and you're a professional, by the way, right? That's what we are. We're professionals. We, all three of us, we're professionals, so this should be easy. And still, it's like, man. So we do this, ostensibly, we would love to be doing this for a living, all three of us, but we do it as an important part of our lives, and we've been doing it for a number of years. And even still, there are times where it's difficult to push through that next barrier or do that next step. Like I said, the first time I was on a Facebook Live or what's the other thing? Periscope. That was a challenge for me. Even though I've been writing on the blog and been talking about stuff for quite a while at that point. So boil all that down to, again, the pros that have a hard time with this, how much more so people that have maybe even been taught that you don't talk about it, or they've never had it modeled or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, we're kind of practiced at this by now. We've done podcasts. You guys have done Periscope Lives. We've done chats. I've done coaching calls with clients where, there's a husband and wife, and we're all talking about sex and orgasms and all these things. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is fine. But even still, like every time I have a call, every time, even before this one, your heart starts pounding a bit because you're like, oh, here we go again.
I messaged Jay Dee and I said, all right, it's about time. Are you ready? And he goes, I think so. Maybe. So it can be difficult. All these different barriers can keep couples from talking. So let's say we kind of push through that, and we've got a couple they're broaching the subject and they're beginning to have these conversations. How often do they need to be having those conversations?
I think that
Willie's going to go check on the dog while you answer.
That's fine. I don't know of any like perfect frequency for people to talk about it. I know for us, it kind of varies. It kind of depends on what's going on. Like if you're in kind of a phase where you're growing and you're working through stuff, that usually takes a lot more conversation than when you're kind of in a, okay, well, we're settled for a bit. And, things are just kind of going along, not stagnating, but, there's some of these times in your marriage where you you push through these hard barriers or these obstacles and you kind of have resolved something, right? And then you just need some time to breathe before you tackle the next kind of level, right? And in those times, I think it's a lot.
You're not always necessarily climbing a mountain in any part of your relationship. So yeah, like you said, you kind of have these moments of pushing through, but then every now and then you just kind of, you're settling in, and that's fine too.
Yeah. And I think in those times, you don't really need to talk as much. There's not as much to talk about because you're not tackling these things head on. You're just kind of enjoying the fruits of your previous labor. And so I think it depends on, where you are. For some couples, I know couples who've been through affairs and things like that, and it's every day or multiple times a day that they're talking because they have a lot of stuff to work out. For others, it might be, no, we don't really need to talk about it anytime in the next week or two because, there's not really any issues to tackle at the moment.
Keelie, did you have any input on that?
I mean, as far as like talking about sex and the frequency, I definitely agree with Jay Dee on that. Like every couple's going to have different times, but I think if you have something that is on your mind, like you want to try something or you don't like something. We had someone tell us recently that they talked to their spouse about not doing something they'd been doing for a very long time, and their spouse was surprised by that.
Decades or like
right,
or close to, like 15 years or something like that of marriage, and finally opened up and had that conversation.
So I think that, yeah, you definitely need to be talking about it when you have issues, but also just regular check-ins. So we're all about just sort of checking in once a month or whatever. How are we doing in different areas of our marriage? Because if you let it go for too long, then it gets awkward because it's like, ooh, this thing's been bothering me for like a solid 2 months and I haven't said anything. Should I now?
Yeah, or maybe even I didn't particularly think there was anything wrong or that needed improvement, but you've asked me and now I'm thinking about it, and that's got me, you know what? Yeah, like, I hate to say, now that you mention it, let me talk about a bunch of stuff I hate. Not quite that bad, but we do that in not just our sex life, in all kinds of parts of our marriage, where we say, hey, how are we doing right now? With fill in the blank. What do you think about the kids? What are we going to do about Corbin going into high school in 2 years? Whatever it is, whatever topics, or how are things going at work?
People find that hard. I think in other areas of life, it's still difficult, but something about sex just makes it even more. Because if somebody all of a sudden says that, oh, that thing that we do, I don't want to do that anymore. A lot of people kind of feel like that's a rejection of them,
right.
Not the thing that they're doing. I've had so many couples, like, well, not couples, but one spouse email me and say, hey, thanks for writing that post, because I've been meaning to talk to my wife about that or my husband about that. And this was an easy way just to kind of slide it across their desk and go, hey, what do you think about this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's the thing is, it can really be hard to bring up the topic, again, whether it's sex life or finances or communication or whatever. It can be really hard to bring it up when there's nothing wrong. To be like, I'm fine. How are you doing? That can be really hard to just even think about it. So,
well, that kind of leads to the next question. I mean, how does a couple, what's the best time to bring up something new they want to try in the bedroom, or a problem that they're having? Because I'm sure you get the same thing. I have readers say, I want to talk about sex. I want to work through this, but every time I try to talk to my spouse, they just shut me down.
I think it depends on the spouse. There are some spouses who you need to warn them and give them time to think about it. So if you say, look, I want to have a discussion about sex, when could we do that in the next few days? Or could we do that in the next few days? You let me know a good time. And then if they don't, follow up with them and say, hey, what could we actually nail down a time? Because some of them, like if you just say, hey, I want to talk about sex and it's going to be now, and this is the topic, they will just panic. And that's no good for anybody. But some of them, if you give them time, they'll be like, okay, I need a day where I haven't had a lot of stress, where I've had a good night's sleep. And then, yes, we can talk about this because I feel a little safer and a little like I can wrap my head around the discussion. Other ones, it depends on what you're discussing too. Like if you're discussing a conflict in your marriage, then, or something, you're doing and don't want to do, or you're not doing and you do want to do, or whatever. If it's going to bring up conflict, then I agree with the comment of advice out there of like, okay, don't bring it up in the bedroom because it's going to cause a conflict and you're going to ruin whatever sex you might have had that day. Do it some other time. Don't do it in public at a restaurant or anything like that. But like, block off time where it's just you two and you won't get interrupted. But other things where you're like, hey, I just want to try something and it's not going to cause a conflict. They're either going to say yes or no, and it'll be okay either way. People often say, no, don't bring those up in the bedroom. But I think for a lot of couples, you can bring that up in the bedroom because some people are a lot more comfortable kind of once they've got their arousal going and everything, and they're part of their brain that kind of shuts off all this like a risk assessment and all these like, oh, well, what if this goes wrong? And what will they think of me if we do that and everything? Kind of that gets dampened and then they can actually kind of think through it without all these things popping up into their head, distracting them.
Right. And so, yeah, I like that you said, like we always say, it depends on the couple, you know. So some folks have no problem bringing something up in the bedroom, and, you know, gauge your spouse. We actually just advised on a live just the other day that, you know, bringing it up in, we weren't even talking problems. We were talking about bringing up, I want to try something new. That for a lot of couples, doing that, like, once you're already naked in the bed, may not be the best time.
Yeah, if you and your spouse are
partner.
hardly ever having sex, you might not want to be like, oh, okay, so we haven't had sex in a month. Let's try this thing.
Right. Or if, you know, if one of you is just not the kind of person that can get news like that, you know, without sort of prepping for it or whatever. Some people, it's like, hey, you know, whatever. You want to try something? Go for it. You know, so it all depends on the couple. So you kind of got to gauge your spouse.
Yeah, definitely. I know there are some people who have emailed me and said, you know what, I found the best time to bring something up with my spouse is when we're already naked and they're like on the edge of orgasm and they're tied up or something. And you're like, hey, I'm just going to try this thing. And then they're fine with it. But if you talk about it beforehand, it's going to be a no. So like it all depends on the couple. That does not work for every couple though. Sometimes people say that. I'm like, no, you're going to get slapped. Like, don't do that.
You don't want to be slapped, do you?
So what are some practical tips on how to have a good conversation? Because, I mean, there's probably plenty of couples who, if they are having conversations, maybe they're not going so great. But what's your advice on how do you have a good conversation about sex?
Well, that's a fun one. It kind of takes both spouses to do it well. If you both come at the conversation with the idea that we both want to make the marriage better or our sex lives better or whatever component of the marriage we're talking about, if you both come with it of like, okay, it doesn't matter who's right or who's wrong, let's just, okay, here's the conflict. And a conflict doesn't necessarily has to be a bad thing. It's just one person has a different idea than somebody else. Sometimes people give conflict a very bad name, but it's simply, yeah, you have two different ideas, and they might be both good ideas, but it's still a conflict. You know, if you look at it as like we just have a conflict that needs to be resolved, it doesn't matter who's right and who's wrong, and there may not even be a right and wrong. You know, then things tend to go a lot better. But I find a lot of couples tend to have this kind of battle mentality that they go into marriage in every conflict thinking that we're enemies. And, you know, it's my idea versus their idea. And they get themselves off on the wrong foot right from the get-go.
So tell us, because we brought you on because we wanted to hear about your new resource, and we've looked over it. We haven't actually had a chance to go through it yet, but we brought you on because we really wanted to talk about it and have you share with us some about it, because I feel like this is a way to talk about sex, to broach this subject really easily, because you're going to go through the guide. So tell us something about your sexploration list.
Sure. So I created this resource over the last month or so. I called it our Sexploration List, which is kind of like a pun on our exploration, you know, because over the years, I've had lots and lots of couples kind of come to me and say, hey, we're kind of bored in the bedroom. You know, like sex is good and all, but it's always the same. And we don't try anything new, and we don't know what to try new. And we don't really want to go looking around the internet for ideas about sex because that's scary. And I say, yeah, that's probably good. Don't do that because there's a lot of scary stuff out there. And that's kind of the one audience. And then the other one is hey, I have something I want to try or a bunch of things I want to try. But I have no idea how to talk to my spouse about it. I don't even know where to start. I'm worried we'll get in a fight about it. And what do I do? So I kind of built this resource to kind of fit both those situations. And it's basically a giant list of a whole bunch of activities that you can do. And some of them are pretty innocuous, like, hey, do you like having your neck kissed? Because some people love having their neck kissed. Other people can't stand it. It drives them crazy. my wife and I always have the conflict because I like kissing her ears. She hates it. So
That would be around here too.
yeah. So it's got a lot of simple things like that, and then they get more and more let's say advanced or edgier, and some people have messaged me saying, hey, I don't like some of the stuff you put on your list. And I'm like, that's fine. Not everyone has to like everything on the list. I put on things that I could not find a biblical reason against them. And some people.
I think the thing about that, though, is that it's okay for you as a couple to look at something and go, we neither one of us really actually want to do that.
Yeah.
So it's good that you put those things on there. One, I didn't even know what everything was. And I'm like,
we're professionals, people.
We're
professionals. And there was stuff on there. I was like,
yeah, Austin called me the one on one of them. He's like, you made up this word, didn't you? Like, I didn't. It's a real word.
There was one I had to lean on my Greek. I was like, if that means, the prefix, yeah, is that what this means?
So we're going to put that disclaimer out there that if you don't know what one of the things is in the list, that please either message us or Jay Dee about it. We don't want you researching it necessarily.
You kind of gave everything a parentheses though, right? Didn't you? On this one?
I put as many as I could, like things that I thought people wouldn't know what they were. I also added a whole bunch of links to things on my blog, kind of of some of the topics, or there are some links to actually, I think there's a link to one of yours on the stripping, and there's a bunch of links to Christian-friendly sex positions because they got a lot of handy diagrams on how to do stuff and ideas. And then there are some links to married dance for different sex toys in case you want to see what those are. But anyways, yeah, it's a big list of activities and then a whole bunch of columns that are like, we do this and I want to do this more. I do this and I like it as is. I want to do this. I'm willing to do this. I might be willing to try this. I tried to split it up as much as I could because people kept coming. I originally only had like 3 or 4 columns, and all the people who were testing it for me kept going, no, I don't fit any of these columns. I need another one. I need another one. I need another. And I would have kept going, but eventually I just ran out of room on the page. And it became really, really hard to fill out all the blanks. So it's almost like at the limit now that I'm like, it's like, if I do one more, it's too many. So now I just tell people, you know what, just put 2 check boxes if you're like in between them, or check in the middle of 2 of the boxes, or put notes on the side. There are margins. It's paper. You can do whatever you want. Just print the thing.
So tell us, how does a reader buy it or get it, or what are you doing right now? What's your offer?
So right now it's on pre-order probably for the next 48 hours because it's been on pre-order for the last week or 2 as I've been trying to get everything done. So it's on my site right now. I'm going to assume you have a link somewhere on this page, right? Yeah.
Right below the video screen, there's a big purple button there that says
That's right.
Pre-order now. And you may have already mentioned this, but it's listed at $7.50 right now, half off. Yeah.
And
so I figured people are willing to.
As soon as it's done, how much is it? As soon as the pre-order is done.
Well, it's half off, so it's going to double.
Oh, I don't know math. Is that 15
for the homeschooling mom?
You're the one to talk.
Yeah, I know. I can say that because we homeschool as well.
I know.
Good times. Good times.
So how
every homeschooling parent does things like that.
Is it 2 days then for them to pre-order?
I'm gonna promise 24 hours. I'm not gonna promise 48 because I have people saying, "When's it gonna come out?" Because it's almost Christmas.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a sexy stocking idea, this is definitely one of them. And so how many pages are we up to on the list?
It is a whopping 25 pages right now.
Woo!
Now, it's not 25 pages straight of activities. There's like 4 pages of like, hey, here's why, couple paragraphs of why I made the list, which I pretty much explained here. A little bit on like how to use the resource and like the process of going through it and discussing it with your spouse, as well as a bunch of like tips for how do you avoid all these conflicts and how do you actually talk about this rationally and reasonably, like two adults rather than two kids fighting over a toy. And then, yeah, we have a bunch of activities that you can go through. It takes a while. I had a couple people give me feedback. They're like, the list is too long. And I'm like, no, the list is not too long. This is just not a 5-minute activity. I'm sorry, you can't fix your sex life in 5 minutes. This is going to take you a few hours probably.
Well, and it seemed to me like you don't even necessarily have to do it all in one shot. Is that right?
No, definitely not. My wife and I, it took a couple sessions, a few, just to get through the list and like fill them all out because, you know, we have 5 kids running around. So it's hard to block off that much time.
Right.
But this is not like, I really mean this to be like a huge resource to help you communicate. This is not a quick like 15-minute quiz to tell you about your love life kind of thing. It's an actual tool. And people have come back and saying, this is an amazing, like they cannot believe how much they've learned about their spouse in a couple of hours. Stuff that they've never talked about before. And they're just amazed and shocked about all the stuff that their spouse wanted to do and they had no idea about, and stuff that they found out, oh yeah, that sounds really interesting, and they would have never thought about it before.
Wow.
So it takes a while, and then going through and discussing it again, that can take a long time too, especially if you guys have a lot of things that you've never discussed before. Yeah, this isn't a quick fix. This is a kind of build up your marriage for a couple hours kind of thing. And yeah, it doesn't have to all be in one sitting. Definitely not. You can just go through until you find one thing and then go, hey, we're good for a few days.
Or weeks.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I mean, here's the thing is it depends on where you currently are. I mean, if you read through this and like you haven't heard of half the things there, then you've got a little ways to go. And if your sex life has been fairly adventurous and there's lots of new things that you've tried, then yeah, you're probably going to read through a bunch of it and go, you know, done it. But one of the things I always try and remember in our marriage, but also try and remind people is that you've got years. You have years. So if you're looking at this list and you're going, you know, like you're saying a few hours and I'm saying together, we're saying it could be a few sessions. It doesn't even have to be a few sessions over the course of a weekend.
No.
I mean, this could be something where you, hey, hit a chunk of it. I mean, they're like kind of sectioned, right?
Yeah, I split them up into easy sections so you can kind of think about one thing at a time.
Exactly. So hit a section or hit the first question in every session or something like that, and then come back in a week, come back in a month, and you know, you may, like I said, if you read through and you come up with like 5 new things, you probably don't need to come back to that list right away. You might want to and just say, this is amazing. We want all the things. But you had years to figure this stuff out. So don't feel like, you know, you've got to go from we've only ever done one position. We've only ever done, you know, one kind of sex, and now we're going to just learn all the things and try everything new. You don't necessarily have to go that far.
And that's kind of an operative word right there, because learn. And especially as a blogger in this space, I don't know about you, Jay Dee, but I spend a lot of time figuring out how to do new things sexually. Like just really like, oh, okay, what's the best way to do certain, not everything, but some things. And, you know, when I was trying to come up with that sexy dance for people, I mean, I had to really put a lot of time into that. And all the products we put together, I mean, there is a lot from conception. So it doesn't mean, you know, you think, oh, there's this thing that I want to try, but maybe there's going to be preparation that has to take place for it anyway.
Yeah. And we find like a lot of stuff that we try, the first time often isn't that great. You know, so you have to try it 2, maybe 3 times, and then all of a sudden it's become your favorite thing.
What does Mary Dance say? Try it at least 3 times, or
I think so. It's kind of like giving food to a baby. Just keep on giving it to them.
Yep.
No matter how many times they spit out the green beans, try it one more time. So, but yeah, and it that's the thing. If you begin to look at it, I told Keelie probably while we were engaged, it probably was even before we were married, that she was my favorite topic, and I got to study her for the rest of my life. And sex is the same way. You know, that's part of my studying her, is learning what she likes, is communication in our friendship, in, you know, figuring out our finances, all of these 5 foundations that we talk about at Love Hope Adventure, that you're learning what works for you. You're learning what works for your spouse. You're learning what just doesn't work, because there are laws of physics. And I don't know how some people are doing the things that they say that they're doing. You'll have to figure that out and learn and get together on the same page, that we're going into this to learn. We're going in as a team, and we're going to do this together, and we're going to be embarrassed together, and we're going to fail together, but then we're also going to win together, and we're also going to find amazing things together. So I'm going to drop in real quick. We haven't seen any comments coming in, but I wanted to open it up for kind of a Q&A time. So if you had a question that you wanted to ask either Jay Dee or you can put that again in the comment bar to the right of the screen, or you can drop it into a private message, facebook.com/lovehopeadventure. So you can send that in there, and we'll throw those out in just a few minutes. Jay Dee, was there anything else that you wanted to cover about the book, things that you want to point out that are you know, particular features about it? Anything else?
I did want to say that I don't think this is like a one-time thing. You know, just because you fill it out today doesn't mean it'll be the same in 5 years or 10 years.
Oh, wow.
You know,
that's a great point.
People change a lot. And I say right in the instructions, hey, you might want to like write on your calendar for your anniversary 10 years from now to go through this thing again. Because there is a column on there that's like, I'm not ready to do this yet, but I might be one day. Right. And I don't know about you guys, but for us, there's been a lot of stuff that before we were like, no, I don't want to do that. And now we're like, yeah, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of couples go through that, where the first time it's brought up, it's like, you know, what? No, of course not. And then, you know, later on, it's a regular part of the repertoire. You know,
yeah.
It's a regular part of lovemaking. And that, again, you have years. You are not now who you will be 20 years from now. So yeah, I love that idea. Come back to it.
Yeah, I always say that God gave me the best present ever, a puzzle that I can solve every day, and it keeps changing.
I love it. Very good.
I would not like that.
Keelie would not love that. But that's me. That's what you have.
We wanted to share that we are giving away a free resource that will actually complement Jay Dee's Sexploration list. We decided to give away a game we titled Lover May I? And Jay Dee, don't you have a section in your book about bedroom languages?
I do, yes. I forgot all about that one. Yeah, there's also a section on words that you can use in the bedroom, because some people are like, some couples like more, what do we say, clinical words, and some like not so clinical words, and sometimes the spouses are different on that. So I try to create a list, and it's not extensive by any means, but it just kind of like hits some of the options to be like, yeah, this is what I like for example, my butt to be called, you know, and this is what I do not like it to be called, and if you ever call it that, we are done for the night.
Never call it big.
If you ever call it that. And you know what? That's huge. We kind of developed the same kind of thing, and what you're going to find. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, it says, I believe it says your free gift. And here's the thing: it ain't there yet. As soon as we're done, I forgot to finalize that. So when we're done, I'm going to click save, and it will be up there. So you have to refresh your page, and then scroll down to the bottom and click the button. If you click the button and it just takes you to the top of the page, hit refresh again, hit Control F5, it'll clear everything out, and it should show up there. But part of that, the introduction to the game, which is called Lover May I, it's kind of Mother May I with a sexual twist on it. It is developing a bedroom language, because we realized when we were writing these cards, and it's the same problem actually that we've had with every board game we've ever done. It's, well, what do we call that? Because we don't want to put this word and it offends this person. We don't want to put, like you said, a more clinical word and it turns people off.
Laugh.
Yeah, yeah. And everybody's, language tolerance is different. And so we wrote a little walkthrough on that, on developing what we call a bedroom language. And it's designed to get you talking about that. Now, when we wrote it, we gave, I think for each thing that we mentioned, whether it's an act or a part or whatever, I think we gave like 3 or 4 options. And then the last option was fill in the blank. You know, like you have your own thing. We also tried to throw in like a funny one for each one. So you mentioned butt, we put badonk-a-donk, you know, that kind of thing, which is funny unless that's what you want to use, and then use it. But then there's a fill in the blank. Now, I haven't read it exhaustively, but looking through this exploration list, there were some where it was like a page worth of options. And I was just like, holy moly, but that's what it's for. I don't want to use the word exhaustive. That's exaggerated a little bit, but it is very comprehensive, where it's got a lot of things, a lot of different options in there that can really help out a lot. So you'll get that in his book. We are also, remember how I mentioned I hadn't finalized everything? Part of the finalizing was I was supposed to pull the board game out of an existing thing that we have. Guess what? I ran out of time because life is busy around the holidays. So you get a bonus. You are not going to get Lover May I. You are not going to get Lover May I plus the bedroom language worksheet. No, sir. You are going to get both of those plus the book attached to the front of that called Lighten Up and Liven Up. The subtitle is Sex After Kids. It is one of a pair of books that we have that we're getting ready to really start pushing out there as a resource for people. So you're going to get the whole dang thing. So you're welcome. Okay. What can I say except you're welcome? It's at the bottom. So when you're done, hit refresh and download that. Have we had any questions come in?
No, we haven't.
Okay.
So guys, we just want you to go and buy Jay Dee's guide because it's very helpful. And he said he's going to release it before Christmas so you can put it in the stocking list or in your sexy stocking. And it's half price right now, and it's totally worth every full price penny. So definitely, honestly, probably should be charging more.
We're talking about something
dollar per page isn't really cutting it.
Yeah, that's what everyone keeps telling me, but I was like, it's Christmas. Maybe I'll raise it after that.
It's not even $1 per page, though.
That's
like
what I'm saying.
25 pages, and it's $15.
$1 per page would be more reasonable.
It's a bar. You're getting it for a steal, folks, already, and then it's half price. And again, we're talking about a resource that you could conceivably be using on your anniversary for years to come. That's worth $15. It's definitely worth $7.50. It's probably worth more, JD. But we do have to mention this as always. We are affiliates of Jay Dee, so the stuff that he has in the store there, if we ever send you over there with one of our links, it's what's called an affiliate link. That doesn't mean a single thing for you. It just means that we're gonna he's rewarding us a little bit of with what is the word I'm looking for here?
I don't know.
A commission.
A commission
of that sale. And don't you read my mind yet? It's been almost 19 years. Okay.
Got a book about that, JD?
Reading Minds in
You
Marriage.
can't.
Readingmindsinmarriage.com, trademark. So we'll get a commission off of that sale, but it won't change your price at all. As a matter of fact, because we've done this video, you're hearing about it. Maybe you wouldn't have if you weren't here. So you're going to get an opportunity to get in on that pre-sale. So get in on the pre-sale. I was working on some stuff on the side earlier and missed a lot of the conversation about the timeline. You said at least 24 hours left on the pre-sale price?
I said at most 24. No, sorry, at least. I said I'd promise I will not launch it for the next 24 hours, but I'm not promising 48. Because I was going to launch it tonight, and then you put up this page saying, and it's going to be on pre-order. I'm like, well, now I can't.
Dang it, Austin. What did you do?
That's okay. Gives me another day to work out any spelling and grammar errors.
Fine tune it. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel bad for your proofreader because that is a lot of words. That is a lot of words.
Actually, I had a bunch of proofreaders, and they all seem to quite enjoy going through it.
Oh, good. I was about to say send it over to me, but now I'm like, I don't think I'll be able to get it back to you in time. I got to put the kids to bed. Huh? Oh, we do have it.
We have it. And honestly, I just want to put this out there that even as marriage bloggers, we go through this stuff too. I mean,
oh yeah,
everything we release, we product test it like Jay Dee likes to do. Talk about product testing.
I got to get in on some of Jay Dee's hookups.
Product testing, I swear. So we already.
Yeah, I printed it for us too. Like, yeah, part to product test, but part because I really like to know what my wife thinks, and we haven't talked about some of the stuff in this list either.
We haven't, especially the ones that we're like, wait, what is that?
How do you pronounce that? Is there a spelling quiz later? All right, guys, we've been on for about 45 minutes. We're glad that you're here. We had some folks coming in and out throughout. Don't forget to refresh the page at the bottom. Click your free gift, and you'll get the book. It's a PDF download. And what else?
Buy the
This
book.
is going to be on a replay. All right. So you can scroll up to the top and grab the link and copy and paste that somewhere. Or if you got your confirmation email, you can continue to use that link. We'll just keep this up somewhat indefinitely, not until the end of time, but it'll be here on a replay. So you can watch it. You can send it to your friends. They won't be able to take advantage of the pre-order offer, though, unless they watch it within the next 24 hours. So spread it around, send it out there. If you have other questions, you can always email us, austin@lovehopeadventure.com, Keelie@lovehopeadventure.com. Obviously, you can find us at lovehopeadventure.com, facebook.com/lovehopeadventure. We're just Love Hope Adventure all over the dang place. Jay Dee, can they email you at JD?
Just Jay at Uncovering Intimacy.
And he said just Jay and neglected to say it's actually just JAY at uncoveringintimacy.com. You can also look him up on Facebook. Is it just /Uncovering Intimacy?
Yep.
Okay. Look for the awesome heart. By the way, that's a fairly new logo. We're loving it. So look us up. Send us your questions. Check out JD's book. Check out your free gift below. Anything else from you?
All.
Anything else from you, JD?
There's a couple other printables in my store that people have been buying up like crazy for Christmas. One of them's they're kind of along the same lines. One of them is called the Spice Jar, and it's just a bunch of cards. It's kind of like a card game of you pick things, and it kind of gives you simple activities to do for whatever minutes of a roll of a dice. And the other one is a printable of sexy coupons. If you want to give gifts to your spouse, there's 50 coupons, and you can print them all off, decides which ones you want to keep and which ones you don't want to keep. And then that's something you can give that's pretty cost effective to your spouse that they will love.
Very cool. Yeah, like you said, it sounds like great Christmas presents. And also, guys, don't forget, Christmas is right around the corner, but so is Valentine's Day. Check out any of these gifts for your sexy stocking for Valentine's Day or for whenever your anniversary is. So we're going to wrap it up there, guys. Be sure you get all your cool stuff, and we will see you guys around next time. By the way, this hopefully is not the last time. This is the first time we've done one of these. We've got some other folks that we're coming for interviews. So make sure you join us next time, and we will see you guys around the interwebs. Bye.